How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be covering everything you need to know about how to learn and master Gnar. Now, in my opinion, Gnar is one of the most versatile champions in top lane. A lot of great top lane champions can have some games or some matchups that feel quite hard to play, but Gnar you're always going to have consistent value regardless of your matchup or the team comp. So if you feel like that's a champion you'd love to add to your pool, or if you're already a Gnar player and you want to level up your gameplay, then this guide is going to be perfect for you. Hey everyone, if you're passionate about improving and leveling up your gameplay, I've been offering coaching classes for 5 days a week for quite some time, and just seen firsthand how much my students have been improving across all different elo brackets. How it works is you'll come to a class with a VOD you like reviewed, and I'm going to help you with your early game, your mid game, or anything you feel like needs improving. And if you're unsure, then I'm going to steer you in the right direction by setting clear learning objectives. Link's going to be in the description, I hope to see you there, but if not, then enjoy the video. First up, we're going to be covering the runes. Now, Gnar does have 3 rune pages that you can use, but you are going to be using one the majority of your games, and that is the Grasp of the Undying page. As soon as Fleet for Work got nerfed for ranged champions because 80 carry tops were running around and ruining it, Gnar had to make the switch over to Grasp, and he is really enjoying it. It really works for his short trading patterns. Now, the runes you're going to be taking on the Grasp page is going to be Demolish, of course, best rune in the game, with Bone Plating or Second Wind depending on your matchup. So Bone Plating is going to be extremely good versus champions they can force onto you, like a Jax or a Riven, but even against champions like Camille, where you might be thinking she might be able to proc my Bone Plating with her W, but if you space out her W or you dodge it with your E, she can only really proc Bone Plating by Eing onto you, and that's going to give you a lot of value. And as for the third rune, you're just going to be running Overgrowth every single game, as the flat HP that you're going to be gaining from this rune is going to be quite nice. Now, as for your secondary runes, you're going to be running the Precision Tree most of the time, with Alacrity and Cut Down. These are the best 2 runes, you're never really going to swap them out, but you can switch out the Precision Tree as a whole to Inspiration and take Approach Velocity and Cookies. Now, this is really good in matchups where spacing is really important, especially against range champions. You're not really going to be wanting to run Cut Down and Alacrity. Versus range champions, you're not going to be sitting there auto-attacking them a lot anyway. So Approach Velocity, if you hit your Q, you're going to move faster running towards them, and it's going to be really good, even in matchups where kiting is quite good. So let's say, for example, an Olaf, where approach velocity, if you don't know how it fully works, if you click towards somebody, you get movement speed when they're slowed by your Q, but if you click backwards, you still have that movement speed for a little bit, so it can help you kite these champions like Darius, champions like Olaf. A lot of it is personal preference versus a melee champion, as Alacrity and Cut Down scale way better. But Approach Velocity can be really good for lanes, especially lanes that you're struggling with the spacing. It can even be used as training wheels in a way to improve your spacing, so it can be good to take out as a beginner to Gnar. And as for your rune shards, you're going to be taking attack speed, adaptive force every game, but then either flat HP or scaling HP, depending on the volatility of the matchup. So if you versus a champion like Jax, who's going to be forcing on you 24/7 with Q, you're probably going to be wanting to run the flat HP. But if you versus a champion that's quite easy, maybe like a Gragas, maybe like an Ornn, you can run the scaling HP, and you're going to get a lot more value from that rune in the long run. For our second rune page, we have Fleet Footwork, and even though this did get nerfed for ranged champions, the sustain is a lot lower, you still need that sustain in a lot of hard range matchups. So if you verse ranged champions that outrange you, champions like Kennen, champions like Akshan, it can be really tricky to even proc Grasp onto them without getting wrecked, so you're not really going to get any value from Grasp anyway. So in that case, you should be running Fleet and really trying to abuse the sustain you can get with Fleet, Absorb Life, and Second Wind. If you have these 3, especially with Darren's Shield, we'll talk more about itemization later, but if you have all of the sustained tech with Fleet, Life, Wind, and Shield, you can get by these really tricky early range matchups like a Kennen, Akshan, Quinn, champions that can look to force onto you and bully you, and outrange the fact that even though Na's a range champion, you're a little bit short range and quite weak early game. If you have the setup, you can get away with a lot of these tricky range matchups. And in the Fleet page, other than Absorb Life, you're going to be running Alacrity, still really good rune on Gnar, and then Cut Down yet again, and secondary will be Second Wind and Overgrowth. You're never really going to be running Bone Plating, because if you're taking this page, you're not versing a champion like a Jax or a Camille or a Riven that's forcing onto you, so there's no need to run it. And as for the rune shards, attack speed, adaptive force, and I would recommend flat HP. If you're taking this page, it's probably because you're in a tricky matchup, so having the flat HP can help you get by, get to level 6, get your tier 2 boots without getting too far behind. For our final rune page, we have Conqueror. Now, you're almost never going to need to take this page, but there is one matchup, one really common counterpick that I do recommend you taking it up against, and that is Irelia. If you think about the way Aurelia plays in lane and the way she's going to be trading into you, once she bases and gets her full build, her Vamp Scepter, the Grasp and Fleet short trading style is not really going to work for you anymore. If you try to proc Grasp onto her and do a short trade, she might force onto you or she's just going to heal it back. But if you have Conqueror, Conqueror in this matchup is more of a defensive summoner, because if she forces onto you way too aggressive, you can chase her down the lane, stack Conqueror, and if she turns and fights you, and you pop Mega with high stacks of Conqueror, you're really going to be able to dominate her in the 1v1. I'll show some examples in the background as I talk of myself playing this matchup with Conqueror, but the matchup feels really difficult without it, but it actually is not too bad if you take Conqueror and use it quite well. If as long as you don't fight her when you're freshly exhausted and you have decent Mega Bar, like 40 or 60%, and she forces onto you and you chase her down lane with Conqueror, you can actually play for kills in this matchup. Now on the Conqueror page, you're going to be taking Absorb Life, Alacrity, and Cut Down with Bone Plating and Overgrowth. Of course, you need Bone Plating versus Irelia. And as for our Rune Shards, Attack Speed, AD, and flat HP, as versus Irelia, in my opinion, if you can get 2 plated seal caps on your first recall and TP back in, the matchup's going to be completely fine, so having flat HP can help you achieve that. And Irelia's not the only matchup you can take it in. I would say as a high elo now, you should only take it against Irelia, but let's say you're playing in Emerald or maybe in Platinum, you might be able to take it in matchups where you feel quite confident in. Maybe you're really good at the Camille matchup or a matchup like Warwick where short trading doesn't really work too well against them, but with Conqueror you can look to chase them down, play for kills, or you might want to take it versus tanks if you feel really confident. I'd still advise against it. Even versus a tank, I would say Grasp is way better because you can just poke them down and blow up the tower in front of them. Because on this page, it is quite hard to take Demolish. You can take Demolish with second wind or bone plating. That is okay. But I'd still recommend only taking Conqueror into really volatile melees like Irelia that's going to be forcing heavy trades onto you. Up next, we have Summoner Spells, and this is probably only going to take about 30 seconds, as you're going to be taking TP and Flash every single game no matter what. There's not a single situation that you're going to run into on Gnar where you don't want TP and you don't want Flash, so just run these every single game. Your team fighting with Flash is going to be significantly better, of course you want that, and with TP, the way you play your early lane on Gnar most of the time is going to be looking to take short trades, get good CS, base and TP back to lane with tier 2 boots, and then bully down your opponent. You're going to be wanting TP for the early lane, for the mid game, so there's no reason to ever swap out these 2 spells. Next up, we have the item builds, and you are going to be starting Doran's Blade almost every single game. This item is really good on Gnar. The exception is if you're up against a champion that can force trades onto you consistently in the early game. So champions like Kennen, champions like Rumble, D-Shield can be quite good, even though D-Shield's not as effective on a ranged champion. If you're up against a champion that can make it so volatile to the point where you're going to be low HP and you don't really get that much value from D-Blade, you just need to go Shield. Some other options, some matchups, where you can go either, will be matchups like Jax, where if they have Grasp and they're forcing onto you every time they have Q, D-Shield can feel quite good. Personally, I'd prefer Doran's Blade if I'm ever unsure, but if you're new to Gnar or you're just nervous about the matchup, you can go D-Shield until you feel more confident, but I would only recommend it up against those champions like Kennen and Rumble that can force trades onto you consistently. And as for your first buy on up, every single game, no matter what matchup you're playing, you do want to be going tier 2 boots as soon as you can. The second you have enough gold for tier 2 boots, you want to be trying to crash a wave and base, or if the wave's bouncing back towards you, base and TP back, or even run back in certain games with your tier 2 boots, and that's when you're going to be playing a lot more aggressive. Now uses tier 2 boots, probably the best out of any champion in top lane, so you want to be rushing them no matter what. Now, the problem with tier 2 boots is they can be quite expensive, so you do have to become really good at extending your lane and staying high HP and making the lane go for a long time, so that you can get them on your first recall. Gnar is not a champion where you ever want to be cheater recalling or basing for double longsword, something like that. You always want to get tier 2 boots if you can. Now, prioritize Tabbies and Swifties because they're a lot cheaper and easier to get, and Merctrids are so nerfed, but if you're up against a matchup like Kennen, you just straight up need Merc Treads. If you're ever in a matchup where they have AP damage but don't have much CC like a Mordekaiser, just go Swifty Boots, only go Merc Treads if you need the Tenacity up against your matchup, the Tenacity and the Magic Resist. But if not, just go Swifties whenever you can greed them and go Tabbies up against really heavy AD champions like a Riven, Renekton or a Camille. Now as for your first item, you are going to be going Triforce every single game no matter what. Very, very easy. But as for the components, now in a lot of champions, let's say you're playing Camille with Grasp or Jax, you actually default to Sheen on your first buy if you can, but on Gnar that's not going to be the case. Even though you do take Grasp on Gnar as well, Sheen doesn't really feel that good on him. You want to be forcing longer trades once you have your tier 2 boots, and in this case you're going to be having tier 2 boots and a Triforce component, so you want to be going Phage as your top priority, and then Halfbound Axe as your second, and Sheen last. So it's going to be the complete opposite as a lot of champions where Sheen is going to feel great. On Gnar it doesn't feel good good at all, you want to be going Phage, then Halfbound, and then Sheen as your last item. There might be some matchups if you versus a ranged champion where Sheen might be better than Axe, but even in those matchups, you want to be forcing big trades onto them. By that time, you're level 7, level 8, with tier 2 boots and a Triforce component. And as for your second item, it's going to be Steraks in almost every single game. The exception to that is if you can go Wit's End into really heavy AP champs where you want to be side laning, but even then I still prefer Steraks second most of the time, as you're just so squishy without it. You can go Randuins if you verse 2 crit champions in the game, especially if you verse a Yasuo or a Yone top, or a Tryndamere. Randuins can feel really good if they have an ADC somewhere else in their comp as well, and then Hullbreaker can be good in games where you feel like there's just not really much chance we can win a team fight, especially if you're up against a champion that really struggles into the empowered minions. So if you're up against a Rumble or a Gragas and you're like, oh, I don't really feel like we can win a team fight this game, a champion like Malphite as well, Hullbreaker can be a great pickup for you. Now, I will touch on Black Cleaver, even though personally I'm not a fan of building it, because even though you might be thinking, oh, I'm up against a tank, Black Cleaver feels quite good, it does make you a bit weaker in team fights. The item is just weak. The item is just underpowered at the moment. So even though what you want from it, CDR, HP, and Armor Shred sounds quite good, the item's just not as good as Steraks or Wit's End, and your tank killing abilities go up a lot with Wit's End, as Gnar's W does so much percentage HP to tank, or to anyone, that with Wit's End and Triforce and just abusing Mini Gnar, you can kill tanks without Black Cleaver. Now, I still got it on the list, you can build it if you verse tank top jungle. So if you verse Cassante Skarner or Cassante Sejuani, you probably can't get a tankier comp than that. In that case, you can feel free to go Black Cleaver and then Wit's End third item and shred through them. But most of the time, almost every single game, your second item will be Steraks, and you just adapt depending on the game. Moving on to Gnar's third item. Now, most of the time, you're going to be building Wit's End as your third item. The best Gnar build at the moment is tier 2 boots into Triforce, Steraks, and Wit's End. You're pretty much full build at that point. Gnar's not really going to get much stronger from then. You're pretty much a raid boss once you have those items. Now, there are some exceptions, however, where if you build something else second, you can go Steraks third, but I would avoid going Black Cleaver Steraks or Hullbreaker Steraks, something like that. You're pretty much building the same thing, just a bunch of AD and HP. There are going to be better alternatives, such as Wit's End. Now, other than that, you can go Thornmail if you are versus a champion like a Fiora or a Nyrelia, really high amounts of healing, strong side laning AD damage. Thornmail can feel quite good. And then Juxo is an option if you versus a heavy range com, where Wit's End, you get a lot of benefit from Mini Gnar. You're unbeatable in side lane. You can just run down any support or beefy jungle top champion and just auto attack them to death. Even AD carries, you can beat them in an auto battle with Wit's End. But if you're versus a really heavy range com, there can be games where you don't get that much value from Wit's End, especially if you're behind. Then you can go Juxo the protein and just be as beefy as possible in that mega form. And you can be building that later on, especially if you have an armor and an MR item, maybe you have Wit's End and Randuins, you can move on to your 4th, 5th item into the Juxo the protein, and you can also build the other items that we talked about at that point. Now, the last item I've got here, Guardian Angel, you can build this. I'd advise against it. It's pretty good in higher levels of play or in pro games, as you've probably seen. The times where I'd want you to buy it is going to be in games where they have a strong AD assassin. Maybe they have a Talon that's fed or a Zed, and they can just blow you up before you pop into Mega Form. It can be really annoying, but if you have GA, even if you die and you come back to life, there's a little trick where if you have 100 Mega as you die, you're going to swap into Mega Form during that GA animation, which can be quite cool, but most of the time you're just building it to not get completely one-shot by the fed AD assassin. But if that's not the case, if they don't really have that, then you can just build normal defensive items. And I've got a couple examples down below of full builds, and I want you to mainly target the standard build. As you can see, it looks really, really good. Just swap out the Randuins and the Juxo with whatever feels best in the game, but as for the first 3 items, that is going to be your go-to. Next up, we're going to be covering the laning phase. Now, I tried to really think and break down the key points to laning on Gnar, and I've broken it down into 6 main points that I've got a different example for every single point, but we're going to be starting with the most important in my opinion, and that is your default laning plan on Gnar should be to get to tier 2 boots without getting behind, and then look to play a lot more aggressive. Now, that doesn't mean you can't play aggressive 1 to 5 in certain matchups. What it means is your default for learning and mastering this champion has to be tier 2 boots on your first recall. So you notice here, I'm walking in with my wave. I'm up against Darius level 1, really powerful champ. I even ward the bush. I'm planning to let Darius push me in and conserve HP. Now, actually, you can't get prio in a lot of matchups, as a level 1 is very weak, even though you're a ranged champion. He's probably one of the weakest ranged champions in the game at level 1. So you need to play very careful level 1. So exactly here you can see I haven't skilled an ability yet. If the Darius ran towards me, I'd have E, so I could walk past him and double jump on his head. But because this guy played a little bit safer, I opted into starting Q, and you can do the same thing. If they walk towards you, you can Q and click away. and it's the same thing as disengaging with E, except for Q is a shorter cooldown, so you can do it a lot more often. So we can see I'm mainly playing for perfect CS. I'm not trying to trade with him too much. I'll go for a grass proc if I can get one, but I'm mainly playing to get as good farm as possible because tier 2 boots are very expensive in this economy, so you need to have really good farm. In the early game, you don't want to find yourself crashing a wave and you have 940 when Swifties are on 1k, anything like that. You need to be able to get them on one shot, so having good CS is very crucial for that. So here we can see, playing it very slow. I'm only walking up to proc Grasp. The damage doesn't really do much in the early game now. I'm mainly just proccing Grasp onto him. Here's D-Shield. It's not going to do a lot. But the more Grasp procs I can get for free, the better. And we can see his HP is getting down lower and lower, so it's definitely not doing nothing. So a trick you can do as well, if you throw your auto in range form, I tried to do it there, but he respected. If you throw your auto in range form and then swap to Mega before it hits them, you're going to get a melee form grass proc, so you get extra bonus HP from it. Doesn't really matter that much, but it is a cool trick you can do. And we can see here slowly pushing in the wave, and now I go for a trade on Mega. So we pretty much want to be trading every time we have Mega, but I can't just jump on Darius's head. He'll chase me down and kill me. So I go for a Q, W, and then auto attack and click away, taking a nice 100-0 trade. My top priority is full HP, or as high HP as I can keep, and getting tier 2 boots, and I will trade onto him if he allows me to. But you can see we're not really playing that aggressive. We're just punishing him if he walks towards minions or walks towards me, and I'm just slowly chipping away at his HP bar while staying high HP myself. So I'll skip it a little bit. Now that I've got push, he's going to be respecting until I can crash. So we can see here, not much is going to be happening for the early points of this lane. Now it gets a bit strong around level 5, I'd say. It feels a lot better. But level 6 tier 2 boots is definitely what you want to aim for before you play too aggressive. The level 1 is very weak, but it's kind of like Aatrox in the sense where every point in Q you get, you start to feel stronger and stronger as well. But you definitely feel the 6 spike, not just because of your ulti, but because you stack mega faster at level 6 as well. So we can see, just playing really safe here. I'm going to be looking to crash a wave in base whenever I can get my tier 2. So here, mega form again. You notice I wait till level 5 before I jump in. Get level 5, jump onto his head. I know that if he chases me down now, I will win the fight. I tried to disengage so he couldn't get the Q healing, luckily he didn't. So now I'll just hard push this wave, and we can see my jungler does opt to go top here and dive. And if this Darius was higher HP, I would have based after I crashed this wave. So if he played a bit better and he has higher HP, I would have based now and bought Swifties. So Tabbies are only like Tabbies into AD champions that can force onto you. So like a Jax or a Wukong or an Irelia. But if you verse an AD champion like an Aatrox or a Darius, who are mainly spellcasters, even though they can auto, I prefer Swifties. I think they're a lot stronger, and they're really cheap as well, so a lot easier to get on your first recall. So I'll skip ahead, my Zyra just walks up and kills him, but regardless, I was going to base here for tier 2s, but you'll see now. So even though I was trading early game, I was not playing aggressive, but you'll see that change completely now. I walk back to lane, I've got my tabbies here, I'm capping. The reason I went tabbies in this game is because they have a triple AD top side. So you see Kiana mid, Belveth jungle, that's why I would go Swifties normally if they had a normal team comp. So we can see now, level 6, we stack Mega so fast, we're so strong, we can kite him out with the tier 2s, space out his W, and just chasing him down here. You can see how strong we are now. I'm playing way more aggressive, I'm willing to tank some damage, you can see. I'm playing way more in his face. The reason I disengaged here, I was on 3 stacks of bleed, did not want to give him the 5, but you can see, the second I got tier 2 boots and got back to lane, it was like a switch was flipped in my mind, and I was playing way more aggressive than I was before. Now, as for our second point, one thing I want you to get into the habit of doing is pre-planning your level 1. You should probably do it on every champion, but I will let it slide if you do it on Gnar, because it's really important that you try to run a simulation in your mind of how you want the level 1 trade to go, because there are a lot of problem solving you can do on Gnar as a champion. You can start Q and try to space them, you can start E and jump on their head, so you need to be visualizing the matchup. So here, even though I'm up against Jace, a ranged champion, I know a Conqueror Jace wants to be forcing a big level 1 trade up against a weak fleet Gnar. So I'm going to be starting E in this matchup so that if he jumps onto me with hammer form Q, I can outplay the trade. So we'll see here, I walk in with the wave yet again, because if he's in that lane bush, I don't want to get cheesed and poked down for free. I ward the bush level 1, so that if he starts fighting me, my minions will all chase him. And now you can see, I'm really waiting for him to play aggressive. If he just went and chilled, like the Darius in example 1, I probably would have started Q, but because he ran at me right now, you can see I've already skilled E, I know what he's doing. I click past him here, auto, space out with fleet, auto, space out again, and then double jump onto his head. So you can see how great this trade has gone for me, even though his champion is stronger than mine at level 1. I pre-planned how exactly I wanted the trade to go, the ward, walking in with the wave, how I used my E, everything was able to allow me to win this very difficult matchup because this matchup is very Jace favored, especially in the early levels. But if you can get to Tabbies unscathed, definitely winning. And you can see just from my level 1 trade alone how good it is. And another trade very shortly here. He walks up level 2 again, auto E auto. The trades are going so well for me because I pre-planned how I want it to go in Champ Select. Moving on to tip number 3. Now this one may seem pretty straightforward if you're already a Gnar main or you really like the champ, but for those of you who are learning, one thing you really want to be looking to do is force a trade with double jump mega whenever you can. So we'll see here, Gnar versus Ken, a really tricky matchup, he does outrange me, but I'm about to take a mega. So here you can see my E's up in 3 seconds, I'm waiting patiently for my mega bar before I look to, for my jump before I look to pop mega, so that I can utilize the double jump. So here we can see double jump really far long range on the double jump and mega, and I'm able to W as he's slowed by the E and guarantee myself a really big trade. So just in that one trade, I was able to turn this matchup from a hard matchup where I was getting bullied to Kennen flashing away and getting wrecked and me being able to get tier 2 boots very easily. So every time that you can, if you can force a double jump mega trade, maybe if you're versus Darius or something, you could be a little bit more careful of it. But if you have the combat power advantage where Mega Knight should have that most of the time, look to force this double jump mega trade whenever you can, especially at level 6. Now, for this next one, I'm going to be breaking it down in a lot more detail in the mega management section of the guide, but because it applies to lane a lot, I do want to go through a quick tip around it. Now, when you switch from mega form to mini form, you are going to be tired, so you can't stack mega during this time. It lasts 15 seconds, you can tell by the bar down below with the sleepy Gnar there, and this is the timer when pretty much every champ you play against is going to be trying to kill you. They're going to be trying to force as hard as they can onto you, so you need to play completely different when you're tired or when you have low mega. There's a big difference between harassing and poking down your opponent on mini Gnar with 60 or 70 mega compared to when you're tired or on 0, because if they all in you, so if Darius goes and flashes onto me now, I'm not going to get mega during that fight, and if he hits the hook, there's a good chance I die if I'm playing up here and trying to auto attack him. Now in this example, I'm actually respecting jungle as well, so I wouldn't play this pussy, don't worry, but I would still respect Darius a lot because I'm on 6 mega, really hard for me to pop mega during the fight if he chose to all in me. But you'll see if I skip ahead a little bit now, their Rek'Sai's gone away, I am feeling really confident now. I have 45 mega that if he starts to fight me now, I'll be able to pop mega during that fight. So I'll skip it a little bit, you can see how much more aggressive I'm playing when I know you cannot ghost and run me down, I'll pop mega and bash you down. So you need to play completely different when you're on high mega compared to when you're freshly exhausted or your mega bar is too low to stack during an all-in. Now, this next tip is going to be mainly based around when you verse neutralizers or tank tops, or maybe that NPC top laner that sits 2 screens away catching farm under tower. The main way you want to be playing and growing your advantage is blowing up the enemy tower. Gnar is a great user of Demolish as you're a ranged champion, and when you're in melee form, when you're in mega form, it's really hard for them to stop you from hitting the tower because you're just going to ulti them and chunk them. Another a little trick you can do as well is if you get the Demolish activated, the rings around it, throw your boomerang in range form, and then swap to mega form, you're actually going to get a melee damage demolish procs. It's going to be really good for breaking down the tower. I won't be able to do it in this example because I have to pop mega on the wave here. I popped it too early, but we can see. I'm going to walk up to the tower here. There's nothing he can do. If he tries to stop me, I'm going to all in him. So I'm not going to kill him, of course. Let's imagine you're versus a Garen and Platinum or Gold, and they don't like that you're doing this, and they try to run at you. You can just ulti them to the wall, WQ, auto E away, and just take a nice chunk as well. And then if you swap back to range form, maybe you can hit the tower also. So either you're going to get the Demolish proc, or you're going to get a really good trade. You don't want to be forcing Demolish, your Gnar ulti onto them down here, unless you're going to kill them. But if you're hitting the tower as range form back here, or melee from here, and they try to stop you, then you can force a really big trade onto them. But this time, he knows about it, he's playing very respectful, so I'm just going to slowly get down this tower. So I'll skip ahead a little bit after I recall and get tier 2 boots, Swifties, and Phage, the best items in the game for Gnar. Now again, stacking Mega, walking in with the wave, proc Demolish yet again. If you try to stop me, I'm going to fight you. That's exactly what he does, he tries to stop me, so I can get a really good trade onto him. So you can kind of see the pattern here, and then yet again, stack a big wave. Gnar has pretty much infinite sustain as you heal when you swap into mega form and you don't have mana, so you can extend the lane for a long time. So Gnar is one of the best answers in the game, in my opinion, to these tanky meatballs that are hard to beat in lane. So you can see yet again, here we go, stack onto him again, trying to get my Demolish proc. Maybe we can do the trick here, chuck my auto switch into mega form. So that you can see I got a melee form Demolish proc onto the tower as I was melee form when my boomerang hit it. So Gnar is one of the best champs at blowing up the tower in the game. I even get a little punch on that guy's head as I jump away, and I've broken 3 plates in this game at 9 minutes on my way to blowing up the enemy tower. Wrapping up the laning section with our final tip, and that is going to be you want to be using your ulti for any trade that you can. Gnar is not a champion where you want to be holding your ulti only for an all-in or for a kill or anything like that. You want to be ulting for a trade whenever you can. So you can see here, I'm versus a full HP Kazante, tankiest champion in the entire game. There's no way I'm going to be able to force a big trade onto him or even kill him with ulti. But you can see regardless of that fact, I'm still going to be forcing a trade on ulti. So it's going to be worse against Kazante, you're going to get more value versus a range champ or a bruiser like an Aatrox or something like that, but it doesn't matter. Regardless of what champion you're versing, you should force trades with ulti. You can see how much damage he's taken here, so that now when I swap to mini form, and I'm tired, I'm a bit weak now, his HP is a lot lower. That is giving myself a lot of breathing room for when I'm in mini form. So really important to use your ulti on that timer whenever you can. And a tip for that as well is sometimes it's not going to be possible every time. You're going to be close to getting Mega when your ulti is still on cooldown. So if you see, oh, I'm about to take Mega on my 80 or 90 bar, but my ulti is still 20, 30 seconds away, sometimes you can wait patiently. You can just hold out on proccing Mega until your ulti is closer, 5, 10 seconds off, so that you can actually use your ulti on every single Mega. Now, sometimes that's not going to be possible, but if you see your ulti is close, you can space out your timing of when you proc Mega, so that you can use an ulti for that Mega form as well. Next up, we're going to be covering abilities and comboing. And that's what you're going to be maxing on now. You're going to be maxing Q into W into E and putting a point in R whenever you can. And I'm not going to talk too much about Mega Management. I'm going to make a separate section for that. It's going to be timestamped down below. But as for what you need to know about Nars passive, the most important thing is at level 6 and 11, the way you stack your Mega becomes a lot easier. You get more Mega per auto and per Q at level 6 and 11 respectively, so it's a lot easier to stack Mega at that certain level compared to at previous thresholds. Stacking Mega 1 to 5 is extremely difficult compared to level 6 especially. Now, in terms of stacking Mega quickly, queuing an enemy champion and ordering them will give you more Mega than hitting the wave, so if you can prioritize them for stacking Mega, that is going to be great, and Mega is going to last 15 seconds before it drops off, so you have 15 seconds to get as much value from that ability as you can. Now, before you swap automatically, once you hit 100 Mega on Gnar, once you get that red bar, it won't swap unless you use an ability. Once you use a spell, it'll swap instantly, but if you don't do anything for 4 seconds, then it will just swap automatically. So if you do want to min-max how long you've got that thread of Mega on, maybe your opponent's really hard respecting, let the Mega fully time out, and then pop naturally, so you get around 19 seconds of scaring them with Mega, as opposed to popping it early for no reason. And once you swap back into range form, after going from Mega to range, you're going to get the movement speed from your W, so you're going to get a burst of movement speed as you swap back, which can be really good for chasing down your opponent. And as for what are the benefits, or the differences I should say, between Mega and Mini Gnar, the most important thing to note is that Mini Gnar has more movement speed and attack speed, but other than that, Mega Gnar outperforms it. Mega Gnar has more AD, HP, armor, MR, everything you'd want in stats. Mega Gnar is going to outperform Mini Gnar in that sense, except for movement speed and attack speed, so Mini Gnar can be a little bit better for chasing people down, but other than that, you're going to want Mega Gnar in a lot of your fights and skirmishes. Now, the way to stack Mega as you're moving around the map, maybe you're rotating between the lanes, you can hit not just minions or champs, you can hit jungle camps, you can hit Scrying Bloom. If you attack a ward, you get Mega, so be really careful, especially if you're 99 Mega, 95, and someone you see a ward on the sweeper, you're not going to be able to be the one that clears that, as you will pop your Mega, so be very careful with that. Moving on to Mini Gnar's Q. And as you toss out this boomerang, it is going to come back to you, as boomerangs do. If you catch it, you're going to get 40% of the cooldown refunded. Now, as the Q comes back to you, it's going to come to wherever you are as the boomerang's coming back. So as it reaches its max range, it's going to fly towards your character. So that means if you toss it out, even if you're in a straight line, if you walk topside, let's say you walk top towards the top lane bush, it's going to fly towards you. So make sure you're walking in the direction just before the boomerang hits its max range that you want the boomerang to come back to. And a trick you can do with the Q is the range it reaches on the backward swing of the Q is significantly longer than forward. So if your opponent's really far away under tower and hard respecting, you can toss a Q behind you, stand still for a little bit so it doesn't mess up your aim, and then move out of the way on the way back, and it's going to fly past you and go even further towards your opponent, so you can pick up a nice kill like shown in the clip here. And as for your Q in Megaform, pretty much every one of Gnar's abilities in Megaform has amazing wave clear, but because the Q cooldown gets refunded 40% as you pick it up, the Mega Gnar Q is exceptionally good for clearing the wave. And you can also cancel that Mega Gnar Q animation with E, so Q into E into auto attack is a nice little combo, and you can also cancel the Q animation with W, so QW can be good as well, and similar to range form, auto Q auto is going to be the way you want to be dishing out your damage. And a trick you can do is just as your Mega Gnar expires, as you hit 0 Mega and you're about to drop into range form, you can toss out a Q. You're going to get the Q animation kind of cancelled by swapping into mini form, but a Mega Boulder will come out, which is a lot stronger than the Mini Gnar Boomerang, so you can throw out a Mega Boulder just before you swap into mini form, which can be good for trading or clearing the wave as you're escaping. Moving on to W, and we'll start with the mini form now, even though it's a pretty straightforward spell. If you can proc it with 3 hits, you're going to get bonus damage and movement speed. And it does a lot of damage, percentage HP, so it's really good for shredding tanks especially. But you can also proc this ability, or get stacks of it, with Q and E. So QE, if you jump on their head with one auto attack, is going to be enough to proc that W. But you can also use this to help you with lasting, so if there's a cannon minion especially, about to go onto tower, or maybe it's just in the center of the lane, you're really worried about it, you can auto attack it twice, wait for it to get low, and then last it with that third proc, because last hitting on early game Gnar can be quite tricky at times. That can give you a little bit of extra help. Now, something you do need to know, before you swap to Mega Form, let's imagine your opponent has 2 stacks of W on them. If you throw the third auto attack at them and then swap to Mega Form, that's not going to count. That's going to count as a Mega Form auto in theory, so it's not really going to proc that W. So you want to be throwing up the third auto, waiting patiently for it to hit the opponent to proc that W before you swap into Mega Form so that you get that bonus damage and movement speed. And as for the Mega Form W, pretty straightforward ability as well. Straight line skill shot that stuns and does damage. Really good for wave clearing, but a trick you can do with it is guaranteeing you slow your opponent before you hit the W. So imagine you don't have ulti. A lot of the times a Mega Gnar will chain ulti with W. But let's say you're level 4, level 5. You can jump on your opponent with the Mega Form E. That's going to briefly slow your opponent. That makes it a lot easier for you to hit your W. And then if you hit your W, they're stunned. You can guarantee to hit your Q as well. So that's generally the order. If you're trading on Mega Form now level 3, level 4, that you want to be using your abilities, E into W, auto into Q is going to be the way to go. You can also buffer this W through CC, so if a Darius is about to hook you or you're about to get stunned by anything, you can get your W, that long animation going. It's going to be going off while you're CC'd and hit your opponent hopefully if you aimed it correctly. And a trick you can do as well, similar to the Q Mega Form, if you use your W just as you switch from Mega Form into Range Form, so you will have to practice the timing of it a little bit. You're going to get a Mega Form W off while you're in Mini Form. So that can keep your catch your opponent off guard, especially if they engage onto you. When you're just swapping into Range Form, the W animation's already started if you press the key. So it's going to be going off. You can get that stun onto them and then start running them down with that Range Form and proccing your W. Moving on to Nazi, and yet again we'll start with the mini form. If you land on a teammate or a allied minion, enemy champ, enemy minion, jungle camp, pretty much anything that's alive, you're going to get a double jump. And if you land on an enemy, you're going to do damage and slow them. So really good during a 1v1, if you can jump on your opponent's head to get the double jump, create more distance, and also damage and slow them as well. Your E will also give you 40% attack speed after casting, so it can be not only good for the 1v1, but also good when you're breaking the tower. If there's nobody around to punish you, you can just E on the spot and auto that tower down, put that attack speed to work. Now, my number one tip for level 1 on Gnar is actually skilling E in a lot of matchups where they have a key ability that can punish you. So if you verse a Jax Q or Renekton E and they jump on your head, you can walk past them, double jump back, bonus damage and chase them down while they're slowed and abuse that attack speed as well, similar to how a cannon would start E. Level 1 Q, definitely overrated on Gnar. I'd go E in the majority of matchups, unless you're versus something like a Mundo that's barely gonna touch you. You can also cancel your own double jump with flash. You should pretty much never do this, but it is an option where maybe you're double jumping into the direction of a skill shot like a Jinx ulti. You can flash out of the way, but I've never seen this used properly, so definitely something to be careful of so you don't do it on accident. You can also cancel an auto attack animation with E, so auto attack E into auto attack feels really good for you to do, especially in a trade. Moving on to Mega Nazi. Now, there's a lot of creative things you can do with this, where if you jump while at 100 Mega, so if you see the red bar, and you land on something, you're going to double jump, but you're going to swap forms as you cast E1, still get the double jump, so as you crash down and land on them, you're going to get the Mega Na E, AoE damage and slow onto them, so really good for catching your opponent off guard. You're in mini form, you're staring at them, double jump onto a minion, land directly on their head, the range can catch them off guard in a lot of situations. But the more advanced way to use this is you can actually jump at you're around 98, 99 just before you get the red bar. And if you do that, you can actually cast an ability while in midair. So if you double jump at 100 mega, you can't use an ability while you're in the air. But if you double jump while you're in mini form, you can cast an ability while you're in midair. So you can actually ulti while in midair during the double jump, or W, Q, whatever you want to do, you can do it all. So you can ER, EW, EQ. You can buffer that ability and use it while you're in midair so that you can catch your opponent off guard so that you're ulting or stunning them during that double jump animation. And some tips for using E well while you're in Mega Form. I see a lot of Nars default to E ulting when they're playing for a big trade or a kill, but especially if you're playing for a kill or maybe a lane changing trade if they don't have TP, you want to be prioritizing Flash R over ER because E is very slow. There's a big animation, they know exactly what you're going to do, but if you Flash R is instant, so especially in a team fight as well, it's going to be way better for you to Flash R and use your E for something else in that fight. You can also cast your E as you're switching back into mini form. So you know it's a trend now. You can do it QW and E. Just as you swap into mini Gnar, you can cast your E, and you're going to get the Mega Gnar E damage and slow. But you're going to be mini form as you land, so it can catch your opponent off guard, or you can just use it to clear the wave, whatever you want to do with it. Moving on to Gnar's ulti. Now, the most important thing you should be prioritizing when casting this on your opponent is making sure they hit a wall. There might be some creative angles where you want to be knocking them back towards your tower or something like that, but most of the time, if you can get them into a wall, that's going to be the way to go as it does bonus damage and stuns them, but if they don't hit a wall, they're only going to be slowed and the damage is a lot lower. So make sure you prioritize the wall, but you can ulti them into the tower if they're on your side of the lane, they're trying to push in the caster minions or something like that, you can knock them back into the tower. R into W combo can do really well for you on that type of situation as they're going to be flung back into your W if you aim it correctly. You can also do the same thing, R into Q, R into E, and guarantee you're going to hit one of your skill shots, but R into W is going to be the way to go if you can't guarantee that wall stun. You can also weave in an auto attack between R and W if you hit the wall stun, but I do advise against it in most cases. So yeah, versus a training dummy or versus someone that's just standing against a wall when you're also by the wall, you can R auto W, that is the way to min-max it, but if you have to ult them into the wall and even walk a step or two, to catch up to them, and then auto W, they're going to have time to flash between your ulti and your W. So if you're ulting from a decent distance away, you're not right next to them, just RW, and if you're ever unsure if you can greet the auto or not, it's better to guarantee the W stun and damage instead of min-maxing. But if you know your opponent's got no flash or parry or anything to outplay your W, then you can just min-max R into auto into W into auto into Q. That's going to feel really good for you. And just like the Q, W, and E, you can use your R as you're just switching into mini form. So you're going to get the mega form ulti as you're a mini Gnar, and then you can abuse that because a lot of people are caught off guard. Because as you drop 0 mega, you don't really swap to mini form straight away. There's a little bit of a delay that you can cast your abilities in. So you can catch people off guard by maybe even E ulting as a mini Gnar and getting that damage down, and then just chasing them down in range form. You can also buffer this ability through CC. So yet again, if you're about to get pulled in, or Alistair comboed or something like that, you can use your ulti and buffer that just before you get CC'd and the animation will still go off. Moving on to Gnar's combos. Now we'll start with Mini Gnar, even though his combos are quite simple. You're going to want to lead with auto tech into Q to cancel the auto animation, E into AA. So AA, Q, E, AA is going to be your standard max DPS combo when going for an all-in starting in mini form. You can also do the reverse, you can auto EQ. However, that does make it harder to aim. I would recommend the more consistent QE unless you have built a lot of mastery on Gnar, and then you can do the AA, EQ, AA instead. You can also auto QE backwards to disengage your opponent. So if somebody jumps onto you, you can auto QE jump back. So they're going to be slowed as you land. If you don't feel like you have enough time to walk through them and jump back, yeah, if you just want to jump back straight away. However, I do recommend double jumping most of the time if you can. Moving on to the good stuff, the Mega Gnar combos. Now, the most common combo you're going to want to do if you're not level 6 in lane is leading with E, so double jump or regular, doesn't matter, jump into auto attack W, auto attack Q into auto. So weaving in an auto between every spell is going to be your max DPS, but sometimes if they have an ability or a movement speed steroid that can get them out of your W, you just want to be EWing because they're slowed when you land on them with your E. You have a lot of room to guarantee that your W is going to hit, especially if you're quick. But if there's no way they can dodge that W, or if you're really confident, you can greed an auto in between every spell. Now, if you have ulti, you can E into ulti, into auto, W, auto, Q, auto. Again, weaving in abilities, but just a reminder, if you have to ulti them far away into the wall, and you have to spend some time to chase after them, you won't have time to greed in that auto before they can flash. So E, R, W, auto, Q, auto is going to be the way to go in that case. You can also ERQWAA if there's no wall, so if you're not going to guarantee the stun, you can just ulti them somewhere and then guarantee that your Q's going to hit, and then they're going to be slowed from the Q. It's going to be a lot easier for your W to hit, but again, if you land right on them, and you ulti them back towards you, you can RW and then chain that quite nicely. So ERW into auto attack, Q into auto attack can also work in that case. Now, like we talked about with your E usage, you want to be prioritizing flash over E if you're going for a kill. So especially if you're tower diving, you want to be leading with flash, F into R, W, Q, E, and then AA. And you might be wondering why you're not weaving in orders. This is mainly for a bursting combo. You want to be killing them quickly, especially if they have room to outplay like a parry or a flash, something like that. If you're diving somebody, FRWQE, and then one extra auto attack, it's going to be your fastest burst combo that you can do, but sometimes you can even E away if you're just doing it to execute them if they're already low HP, and you don't need that extra E damage, but this is going to be your way of a quick combo. And as for our final combo, the best Gnar combo of all is your 99 Mega combo. So just before you swap into Mega, if you double jump on the minion, like we talked about, you're going to be swapping into Mega in midair, but you're going to be able to use abilities while in midair. So if we E and we pop Mega Wall in midair, or from that mini form double jump, you can E into R into W, into Q into auto, and that's going to be exceptionally good in a team fight as well. So if you double jump off an ally and ulti 3 people into a wall into WQ auto, you're most likely going to win that fight. So that's going to be your highest impact combo in a team fight especially. Next up, we're going to be covering managing your Mega Bar. And for this section, I'm just going to be putting random clips in the background, don't really worry about them too much. I'm mainly going to be giving you advice and key learning objectives for you to work on to improve your Mega management. Now, starting with the early game, the number one rule for this is when you are freshly tired, you need to hard respect. That's not just the early game, that's going to apply in the mid game side lane as well. But if you just drop from Mega to Mini, there's going to be a 15-second timer where you can't stack Mega anymore, and that's when they're going to be looking to engage on you. So if you're versus a Jax or a Camille or a champion that can force onto you, you need to be hard respecting during that timer when you are freshly Mini. Especially if you don't know where the jungler is, maybe you're up against a matchup that can't force onto you very easily, but you don't know where the jungler is, they can gank you on that timer, and you're not going to be able to turn Mega, pop Mega, and turn that gank. Now, with that being said, the second rule for this is you don't really need to have Mega ready or to have 100 bar or 90 bar to walk up and play aggressive. If you have enough bar, enough Mega bar to turn Mega during the fight, that's going to be more than enough. Now, how do you know how much that's going to be? It's really going to depend on the matchup, how much damage they have on you, and how well you can kite them out and store for that bar. Just keeping in mind in this case, being level 6 makes it way easier, and especially level 11, those are the two thresholds, level 6 and 11, where you stack Mega faster than the previous threshold. So it's really important that you know, okay, if Jax jumps on me here, I have around 40 Mega right now, I should be able to get Mega in time before he runs me down. Now that's going to take a lot of Gnar games to build that mastery on, but something you need to be thinking about with intention, because if you just walk up only when you have 99 or 100 Mega, very easy for them to respect. But if you force onto somebody and you have 50 or 60 Mega and they jump onto you, you might be able to chase them down, double jump on their head, and get Mega during that fight. So it's really important you don't just tunnel on 0 Mega, I play safe, 100 Mega, I play aggressive. You need to know the exact threshold where if they force onto you, you can turn Mega during that trade. Now, pre-6, it's going to be very, very difficult to pop Mega during a fight. Unless you're already on 90 or 85 or something like that, most of the time, you're not going to be popping Mega during a fight. You're just going to be getting Mega and jumping onto their head and forcing a trade, because level 1 to 3, they don't really want to be sitting 2 screens away and respecting you when you have Mega. So you don't really want to be taking a long trade even at Mega. You just want to be jump, stun, queuing, auto attack, run away, enforcing that trade, but you still want to be looking to do so. But especially after first recall, it's really important that you develop that skill set, and you know if he jumps onto me and I have 20 Mega, I'll probably die before I get big form, or if he jumps onto me when I have 40 or 50, I should be able to play this one out and start to build upon that skill with intention. And as for the mid game, I would say the rule to follow for a team fight is the 60% rule. So every team fight, you're approaching a dragon or a flanking mid, starting the fight on 60% is going to be a great general rule for you to follow. It's enough Mega where if they jump onto you, you should be able to pop Mega before you get killed, and it's low enough that you can actually abuse Mini Gnar to a degree and starting out the fight in the front to back. So if you check out the team fight section of this guide, you'll know how exactly to team fight, but having good Mega management and starting a fight at around 60% is going to be the sweet spot. Now, there are going to be exceptions. Maybe in a fight where you want to play more like an AD carry, maybe you're a front to back team comp and you're quite strong, you can start at 40% or 30 and abuse mini Gnar a bit more. Or in a game where it's the opposite, you have a hard engage comp, you can start the fight at around 80 or even 99 mega and look to just purely engage that fight. Especially if you have on your team maybe a Rel or a Vi and they've been playing quite well at Jarvan and they've been forcing a lot of snap engages, you want to be starting the fight with as high mega as possible, because if Rel gets a big engage, you want to be able to follow up with your CC and CC chain them. But if you have 60% or 40 in that situation, you're not going to be able to get mega in time. So it's really important that you know what champions you have on your team. If you watch Gnar in competitive, most of the time, they start out the fight with around 99 or 95 mega because they have somebody good on their team that's going to be engaging a Rakan combo that they can follow up from. But if in solo queue that's not going to be the case, you might have a great team comp, you might have a Kayn jungle and a Yuumi support. No one's going to be starting that fight for you. So starting it off at around 60% or maybe even 40 can be quite good in that case, but 60 is going to be your default. Now, there are some exceptions. If you're TP flanky, you can TP in. So a trick you can do is pop mega, well not pop mega, get 100 mega bar, and then start your TP channel. And then by the time you appear, you're going to be freshly mega Gnar, because it takes 4 seconds to swap from mini to mega. Pretty similar for TP. So you should be able to TP flank in that mega form or just TP into the fight. That can be quite good as well. But in terms of a team fight that you're thinking of in advance, like a Dragon or a Herald, Baron, where you're rocking up early, starting the fight off around 60% is going to be great, unless you've decided that you want to be starting off this fight in mini form and getting a lot of value from that range auto attacks, or the opposite, if you want to be starting in mega and following up your team's hard engage, or maybe engaging for yourself. Now, with that being said, in regards to team fighting with Mega, there are 3 rules I'd like you to follow to improve your Mega management. Number 1, if you are approaching a team fight that you want around Dragon, Baron, anything like that, you need to be prioritizing your Mega management over the wave. Let's say you're trying to push out bot wave or mid wave before the Dragon's up because nobody else is, but it's going to be popping your Mega when Dragon's up around 40 seconds, 50, something like that. Don't touch the wave. Just leave the wave in a shitty state on your side of the map or in the center and just play for the fight. If they see you pop Mega on the wave, they just need to play safe for 15 seconds and then they can hard engage on your team. And if you're freshly exhausted, you're going to have a really bad time. In competitive, you can calm with your team. Hey, I'm popping my Mega now. Play safe. I'll come in 20 seconds before Dragon, something like that. But in solo queue, they are not going to care if you're mega or mini. They don't even know whatsoever. So it's really important that you play purely for yourself and just leave the wave in a shitty state so that you can play out the fight in good mega. Now, number 2 in this case, the second rule is making sure you don't get hit by abilities that will pop your mega. So if you're like 80 or 90 mega, you got to be really careful not to get hit by a poking ability, because taking damage also gives you stacks of mega. So if they hit you with one ability, like a Jace QE, something like that, and it pops your mega, now they can just chill for 15 seconds, especially they popped your mega from really far away. They can easily respect and then hard engage on that timer when you're freshly exhausted. So really important that you stay high mega, stay far away from the fight if they have poking abilities, or just start out the fight in 60% mega. So even if you get hit by something, it's not going to pop it. That's going to be perfectly okay. And our third rule for this is don't be too nice for your jungler. Don't hit the dragon if it's going to ruin your mega. Stay in a good position in the fight. Maybe take over a bush and get ready to hit them if they walk in. But don't just leash the dragon and pop mega on it. That can be not too bad at times, because you pop mega and they either have to come in and fight you, or we're going to get the dragon. But I'd still say prioritizing the fight is going to be a lot better. Because if they come in and try to steal the dragon or overcommit onto your jungler, something like that, you can get a lot of value on your champion. But if you pop mega at dragon, they might stare at you. They might even give you the ocean dragon or the air dragon, something useless, and then engage it again. So really important that you prioritize your mega management over the wave, over the dragon, so that you can have the best impact in this team fight. Next up, we're going to be covering the matchups, and keeping in mind before we begin, this is a general tier list that will apply to all elo brackets. It is weighted a little bit higher towards higher elos, but there are going to be some exceptions. So if you're playing in Iron or Bronze, Nasus would be a little bit higher, and if you're playing in Challenger, I'd actually put matchups like Aurelia a bit lower, as if you're really good in ARM, you can play out matchups like that, but Aurelia does have that ease of execution. So we're going to be starting in the hard tier, and you can probably notice a theme from these champions. They are all champs that can really easily force heavy trades and engage onto you, and they're all very powerful in the early game. So it's really hard for you to get to a tier 2 boot buy in these matchups, which is of course our goal in every single matchup that you play. No matter what matchup I talk about on this list, your goal is to get tier 2 boots as fast as possible, and the matchups in the hard tier list are no exception. You need to be getting tabbies on your first recall, and if you can do so, then the matchups are a lot more playable, but they have a lot of agency to force you to not be able to do that. They can 3-wave crash, let the wave come in, they can heavy trade onto you if you try to auto attack them or even last it. So it's really hard for you to get 1200 gold in these types of matchups. My advice for it is to prioritize staying high HP, play around your bone plating cooldown and your mega, and make sure you're really just prioritizing perfect CS over trading in the early game. But once you have tabbies in level 6, you can play a bit more aggressive. But in the early game, make sure your goal, I am purely focused on getting tier 2 boots. All I care about is my wave control and is getting as many CS as I can. If they can force onto me, maybe I give a minion or just last it with Q, and making sure the matchup doesn't become too volatile in the early game. Moving on to the opponent favored tier, you can see there are a lot of champions here that can either force onto you, like a Jax or a Camilla or a Yone, and also champions that can trade onto you. So a Jace can force onto you, a Teemo, a Kennen, they can auto take you down. So these are also matchups that are hard to get tier 2 boots. You can see the theme at this point. The harder the matchup is to get tier 2 boots unscathed, the higher I've got it on the list. However, these matchups have a lot more counterplay, more agency for Gnar than the ones above, as they just aren't as strong in the early game. A champion like Camille and Jax, they can force some trades onto you, but you can't compare them to a level 3 Ignite Riven or Irelia, champs like that. So it's really important that you just try to have the same game plan, get tier 2 boots unscathed. Now, you do have some outplay potential in a lot of these matchups in the hard tier as well. We'll talk about it more in the laning section, but if you start E in a lot of the melee ones, so if Jax Qs onto you and you can walk past him at E and then start auto-attacking him down, you can actually start to be in a good state. And when your E is on cooldown, but their gap closure is up, you do need to play a little bit more respectful. And as for the champions like Cassiopeia and Rumble, you just need to be very good at dodging skill shots and trying to farm with Q. You might need to give 5 or maybe even 8 CS in the early game, just so that you don't get too chunked. Especially you need to be respecting all of these champions level 2, level 3 timers. It's really important that you try to get to your item, your tier 2 boots unscathed, but you do have more agency. So for example, versus a Jace, or even a Cassiopeia or a Kennen, at your Mega Timer, you can just jump on their head and WQ order them. If they sit far back during your Mega Timer, that gives you a lot of freedom to farm, trim the wave, maybe even hold it from crashing under your tower. So you do have a lot of agency in that aspect. But once you're fresh Mega, Mini, especially level 1, they have a lot of room to force trades onto you. So your top priority is staying high HP and trying to get as much farm as you can, because after you base, you should be able to win the majority of these lanes. Moving down to the skill matchup tier, we can see a lot of these matchups are very volatile, but they're not so strong early. They don't really have good forcing tool. So let's say Fiora, for example. We can't really compare her Q to what Aurelia can do or Riven can really hard force onto you. And you can go D-Shield versus a Grasp Fiora to nullify some of that poke. And then if she Qs onto you, you can kind of chase her down. You can dodge her parry with your E every time. So there's a lot of skill to this matchup. But at level 7 and Tabbies, you can look to run her down. And at Triforce, especially, you can play for solo kills in this matchup. So definitely not too tricky. Now, Olaf is a matchup that in my opinion, before I went to Korea, I thought this matchup's pretty good for Olaf. I actually really like this one. But this is a really good Gnar. They get Swifty Boots on his first recall, has really good spacing, plays around your Q. It can be quite tricky, especially now where Olaf's mana costs are so horrible and cookies are trash. You just need to bait out a couple of his Qs. Once he's you can look to run him down. Every time he checks Q at you or the wave, if he doesn't walk up and pick it up, you've got this big time when his Q is on cooldown, where you can staunch him, proc grasp, chase him down. You can go flee in this matchup too if you're uncomfortable, but once you have Swifty Boots, you're going to be perfectly fine in this lane. Now, Cassante, previously I would have put this as Gnar favored, but at the moment Cassante is just so broken, but he's not so strong to the point where he can force engages onto you. His range isn't that long, so you can get Swifties. I really recommend Swifties in this matchup, especially when he's got Iceborne, it feels really good, and then you can kite him around, you can dodge his Qs, bait out his spells. You have a lot of agency in terms of getting to your Triforce unscathed, maybe even getting a plate. But versus a really good Cassante, don't expect to solo kill him and get a big advantage, as the champion is just too strong at the moment. But as long as you get Swifties and Triforce and you're not behind, you can start to run him down in the side lane. Now for GP, to give another example, I would recommend D-Shield in this matchup, as you want to be trying to poke him down early, make the lane a little bit volatile so that he can't get Sheen on his first recall. and you need to be able to win the barrel minigame, or you can just dodge his barrels by eating away. But it's really important that you, again, get to tier 2 boots unscathed, but because he's also got a kind of condition where he wants to get Sheen on his first recall, it can be good to play it a bit more volatile. So if you have D-Shield and Grasp, and you auto-attack him every time you have Grasp, eventually he can go and you can force him to do an early recall. So you can see there are kind of solves for every single matchup in the skill matchup tier, but a lot of the solves are going to be baiting abilities, so maybe walking towards Olaf, baiting his Q, walking towards Aatrox, baiting his, sidestepping. But again, as long as we get to tier 2 boots, we're going to be fine in a lot of them. Some of them can be tricky, like Alawi, if she starts W, she might be able to force onto you with Grasp. But again, you can start E in a lot of matchups that can force onto you, walk past them, double jump on their head, chase them down the lane, and then maybe give a minion or two while your E's on cooldown, just to stay high HP and get your items unscathed. Moving on to the Gnar favored matchups. Now, these matchups here are ones where it can be quite easy compared to most lanes to get to your tier 2 boots unscathed, and you might even be able to get prio in some of them. So, matchups like Malphite, if you have Doran Shield and Grasp in second win, his Q's not going to do anything. You can just play for push, poke him down with Grasp, and once you have tier 2 boots, you can actually start to demolish towers in matchups like Malphite, matchups like Ornn and Tahm Kench. You can start to proc demolish on their tower or just poke them down, and eventually you're going to be gaining yourself a big lead in the form of plates and CS. Now, some of the carry champions here, like a Renekton, this matchup is quite popular in pro play, so I've got it mapped out, don't you worry, where Renekton gets pushed in this matchup, where you can win trades while he's getting pro, you got to respect his level 2. If he starts E, you got to start E as well, to walk past him, double jump on his head. If he starts Q, you can start Q and just use it to poke him down. Now, you got to be using your Mega well. You can force a big trade when you have Mega, jump on his head, stun Q auto, click away, and you're mainly just aiming to get to Tabbies unscathed. Renekton actually has the agency in the early parts of this lane, but if you can get 2 plated steel caps, level 6, level 7, you can just run him down. There's very little he can do unless you're fighting him when you're exhausted. Don't fight this guy when you're tired and he just pops ulti and beats you down. But if he pops ulti and you just ult him away with Mega Gnar, he's now going to be completely useless. Mega Gnar ulti is something that you can use very freely, but if Renekton doesn't have ulti, it's quite tricky for him to do anything in the game. So really important that you trade ultis with him if he looks to do that, and then you can just poke him down, take the small victories, make him base at a bad time. But that first step, making sure you stay high HP in the early game, outplay his E start, and try to get to tier 2 boots, is going to be crucial in this matchup. But pretty much this matchup, the way I like to explain it, it's Renekton favored until Tabbies, and then it's Gnar favored the entire game, and it just gets worse and worse for Renekton as the game goes on. Some other matchups like Udyr are quite similar, where he's really strong early, but if you can get Swifty boots in this matchup, you're going to have a lot of room. Most of the tanks here, you just want to be playing for demolish, blowing up their tower, stacking 2 waves together, and blowing up the tower, just forcing out the trades against any champion as soon as you have Mega, because if you can get the Tahm Kench chunked and he's under his tower with a double stack cannon wave, very easy to proc demolish up against him. And finally, we have the free matchup section. Now, one thing I do want to note, just because you see these champions in the free list, I don't want you to go into your lane and play like a complete psycho 1 to 5 just because they seem easy. Gnar is still a very weak champion in the early points of the lane, especially level 1. If you walk up and try to bully a set and he pulls you in and beats you down, you're really going to struggle. So really important the same condition is met, even into these champions, where your priority is staying high HP and getting tier 2s. That doesn't mean you need to be respectful versus them. You can auto-attack a Garen or a Trundle way more than you can a Camilla or Yone, of course, but it just means your priority is staying high HP. You need to become really good at spacing. If you can on Gnar, then all of these matchups are pretty much unplayable for them, and you might need to use E on certain abilities. You can E Sejuani's Q, E Cho'Gath Q, and run them down, but if you can do that, and if you can space well, then once you have tier 2 boots, it's pretty much unplayable for them. You can run them down in lane, and that just scales even more so into the later points of the game. Moving on to the mid game, and for those of you watching who have seen my winter split push or winter group guide, that's really going to help you for your mid game on Gnar, because I'd say this champion is a perfect middle ground between being exceptionally good inside and also being really good in a team fight. He pretty much beats the majority of champions inside, because your range, you can run them down, and if they try to all in you can pop Mega, he'll beat Fiora, he'll beat Yorick, Trundle, depending on the game state, as long as you're not too far behind, you can beat a lot of those champions for the majority of the mid game. However, he's also really good at team fighting, so it's really important that you know when to do each one. However, the formula you're going to be following, the structure, is still going to be creating pressure on the opposite side of the next objective. So if Dragon's up next, you want to be pushing top, you want to be putting your character there, and if Baron's up next, you want to be pushing bottom, and then looking to create a 5v4 play when somebody answers you. If you can't make progress 1v1, if you can't just hit the tower in front of somebody, you want to be looking to create a 5v4 team fight. So here, I can't make progress versus Silas, he does have Baron, it makes it a lot harder, and I'm going to be looking to create a 5v4. So I pushed in bot, I made Silas respond, and then I TP here for this 5v4 team fight, and we're able to win it. So you can see the formula on Gnar is very similar to a lot of strong bruisers if you've watched a lot of my content. However, Gnar has a better opportunity to play side than a lot of the bruisers like a Renekton or an Aatrox, as you can break towers so quickly, especially with Demolish and the fact that your range. So it's really important that you know when to do each one. Now, if I were to try to simplify and give you an easy answer to know when you should be grouping and fighting, or when you should be full split pushing, pretty much if you can make progress 1v1 against your opponent, so hit the tier 2 in front of them, or threaten the kill and then get the tower, that's what you should be doing, because that means they have to send 2 people to stop you, or you're going to get the tower and get extremely fed. The exception being is if a major objective is on the table. So if you break bot tier 2 because you make progress but your team all dies around Baron, for example, and you lose Baron, or Dragon Soul or Elder, one of the big 3, then it's definitely not worth it. However, if you're making progress on the opposite side of Herald or Dragon, one of these trash objectives that we don't care about, then that's going to be your priority. So you can see in this game here, after my Great Escape, they have an Akali mid and a Tahm top. I can make progress against both of these champs, either of them 1v1, which means for this dragon fight that's spawning soon, either you send 2 people to stop me, or I'm going to break the tower and then my team might win the fight, they might lose the fight, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to get so fed from the tier 2. So you can see I TP back, and Akali's matching me not Tahm, she probably has TP, but she just can't handle. You can see she's just getting completely wrecked under tower here, and she goes around the back, tries to get away, get to that dragon fight, and I'm just able to easily kill her. So if you can make progress 1v1, you should be doing that. That's the formula I want you to follow, unless there's a major objective on the table. So if you verse a champion like, let's say, Renekton, and he's not really far behind, he can just one-shot the wave in front of you, and you cannot make progress, then you should be looking for a 5v4. Keep him stuck bottom, go to Herald. Keep him stuck top, go to Dragon. But if you can make progress and you're getting that tower down at a reasonable pace, you should be looking to do so. Another variable to keep in mind is Void Grubs as well. In this game, I have 6 Void Grubs. That's a big factor of why I TP top here and play for the tower, as I know I'm going to have a lot of meaningful damage, and I'm going to be able to get this tower down in a reasonable amount of time. Now, in this example here, it's going to be the complete opposite, where I want to be prioritizing the team fight instead of split pushing. So even though my team's a bit behind in this game, and I am able to beat up the Tryndamere inside, I can't make any meaningful progress against them. I can't actually beat the Tryndamere under tower, I can't break the tower in front of him, I can get prio against him, so I want to be using that, push in the wave, make him respond, and look for a 5v4 play. So I'm still using my strong side landing abilities, I'm not just A-ramming like I'm a Malphite or something, but I'm still looking for a fight primarily, as he's just going to one-shot the wave with Stride Breaker E anyway, and I can't hit the tower in front of him. So we can see push and bot, rotate mid, they have good vision down so they can respect me, so straight back to bot, pushing the wave again, constantly every single wave I'm pushing, I'm looking to create a fight, and here I was able to get one. So we can see very shortly, the fight will go well, as Gnar is great in split and team fights as well. So we can see, in this game, because Baron's on the table, not an Infernal Dragon, and I can't hit the tower in front of anyone, like I could when I had the matchup up against a Tahm or an Akali, I'm going to be playing for the fight primarily, but in a game where you can make progress, especially if it's a minor objective like a Dragon or a Herald, you want to be prioritizing the tower and the pressure you create there instead. Moving on to team fighting. Now, the mega management section of this guide should hopefully help you know which mega you should be starting with in a fight, but pretty much the way you want to be playing out the majority of your fights is starting out the team fight in mini form, getting a lot of value in a front to back setting, and then looking for a double jump engage, flash engage at the later end of the fight. So I have an example here. You can see rotating down to mid, stacking my mega on that pink, trying to get some poke down as well. Now I'm starting off this fight on 68 mega, which is a really good threshold because I can still get value from my mini for my hyperprocs, my high DPS, but I'm also going to be able to get mega in a hurry if I need it. So we can see just front to backing, running down this Darius, and now I can swap to mega, holding onto the ulti momentarily, waiting for my time to strike. And now here it comes. E flash ulti, 2-man ulti, able to double kill them here. So you can see you're starting up the fight in mini form, playing more like an AD carry, and then you swap into that hard engage bruiser style later on, and you look for your moment to strike. You're not always going to be able to get the perfect double jump animation cancel on 99 Mega, but sometimes the good ulti opportunity will appear in the later end of the fight, as long as you are looking for it. So you can see the patience that I had in this fight allowed me to get this good ulti, or if I rushed into the second Iron Mega, that opportunity would not have arose. Now, to be honest, the most important parts of team fighting is the point we just went over, starting out the fight in mini, more of an AD carry, and being able to switch into mega form whenever you like. So that combined with the mega management section of this guide should give you a lot of tools needed to team fight well. However, there are a lot of opportunities for you to be flexible on this champion. So I'll go through an example here where although Gnar isn't really a flanking champion, you can flank in the right situation. So we can see right now, if you see the wards around mid and around the bot jungle, we have some really good flank wards, and I see the enemies approaching now. Tournament's even spinning in. They are really keen to get stuck in. You see my ping right up here. I'm ready to create a TP flank. So I stack my mega a little bit more, and then TP in. As my mega is building right now, you can see 78, 83. My mega is building as I'm TPing, and I'm going to have almost 100 mega ready for this TP flank. So you can see, even though the norm on Gnar is starting up the fight as a front to back and abusing double jump or flash to get to the backline, especially in a game like this where you've got great vision, you can get behind them with good mega timing. You can also TP flank as well in the right situations. Moving on to Gnar's identity and the mindset you should have when playing this champion. And I'd say such a key point of the identity of this champ is just how versatile and stable he is in terms of every game you play. There are a lot of champions that you can play in top lane, where if you get counterpicked or it's not a great game for you, maybe you're a Jackson to a Gragas, they have Braum, Hui mid, a bunch of CC and disengage, you feel quite useless. Or if you play Camille and on your team, we pick a Graves jungle and then Jhin Pike's bot lane, you don't really feel as useful as you could be if your team just picked better champs. But Gnar is a champion where, regardless of what your team plays, what the enemy team plays, you're going to have consistent value. Of course, if your team plays better champs, you're going to have more value and you're better into certain champions than others. But I'd say your average on Gnar is going to be way better than the majority of champions in top lane. So if you love that stability, you don't really like being a champion where some games it feels great, some games it feels unplayable, Gnar is going to be really key for you. Now, another key point to his identity is just how powerful he is in side lane and team fights. When people think strong side laner, they think Yorick, they think Trundle, they think Fiora. Gnar beats pretty much every side laning champion in the game. Because your range, you can just kite them and run them down, and then you swap to Mega during the fight and you have realistic kill threat onto them. He's so powerful inside, and he is good in team fights, so that makes him even more versatile. So if you're in a game where maybe team fighting there's a low chance to win because your team's playing poorly, you can tunnel more so into side laning, or the opposite, maybe side laning you're not really making much progress, you're just auto attacking the Renekton under tower and not doing much, you can move over to team fights because you are good in both aspects. And as for the mindset I want you to have on this champion, we've talked a lot about the mega management, so if you're unsure you can skip to that section, I won't touch on it too much here, but the two main points, one for early game and one for mid game, that I want you to have in your mind as you play this champ. In the early game, your main purpose is to get to tier 2 boots without being behind. So your priority should be high HP, good CS, and getting those ninja tabbies or swifties or mercs, whatever you need in the game, and then you can play way more aggressive. Yes, there are going to be some lanes or some players you play against where you can bully them early and maybe even get solo kills, but your average should be, your default should be getting the tier 2 boots, and if you play an easier matchup, you get better on Gnar, or you see your opponent is maybe not too good at laning, then you can punish more, but make sure you're not going into every game trying to dominate your lane straight away and making it too volatile. You want to be getting to tier 2 boots without getting behind, because if you make it too volatile and you die, or you have to base and come back with a long sword or tier 1 boots, that's just not going to be as good on this champion. And for the mid game, the number one tip I can give you is be very decisive with whatever you do. Because this champion is something I would say a pure 5 out of 10, and on the scale of team fighting or split pushing, where he's really good at both, you want to be very decisive with what you do. You don't want to be deciding, okay, I want to play split pushing here, and you start split pushing, you burn your mega, and then a team fight breaks out, that you TP2, but your mega's not that good, it just runs out, and you're not going to be, at full power for that fight. You need to commit to whatever you're doing, and then review it back after and see, oh damn, I actually should have team fought here, I should have just left the dragon and gone to side. Maybe your mega pops when you don't want it to. You can backping your team off the dragon and play for side laning. You have to be really decisive. Do I want to split push or do I want a team fight in this upcoming fight? Because Gnar is not a champion where you can just deviate from your plan. Where on a Jax, maybe you think, oh, I want to just split push, and then you see a good fight and you TP in and it looks good. But on Gnar, you need to be planning your mega in advance, so you can't really be flexible like that. He's the most flexible champion, I'd say, in terms of picking him, but in the game, in terms of your mega, when deciding to team fight or split push, you have to be really decisive with what you do. You have to be confidently right or confidently wrong with your decision, because it's really important for your improvement on the champion as well. When you look back, you can know, damn it, I should have fought there. But if you just start split pushing, you TP in to help your team, and your mega's not that good, you're not going to have as much learning because you can't see how your decision went. So it's really important, not just for your result in the game, but also for your learning on this champion, to be very decisive with what you want to do in the next sequence. Next up, we're going to be going through a full game review of a recent Korean solo queue game of mine, and I'm going to be explaining exactly what I'm thinking throughout this entire game. So in this game here, I'm up against a Cho'Gath, relatively easy matchup. My main goal heading into it was get good CS, get my Swifty boots on first recall, and then try to blow up his tower, utilizing the demolish and tower breaking tactics that we talked about in the laning section of the guide. So in the early game, I'm still going to be looking to poke him and auto and Q him down with grasp whenever I can, but my main goal is good farm. So you can see here, I go for the auto Q, unlucky we missed. I chose Q over E in this matchup as I'm pretty confident I can dodge Cho'Gath Q with my movement, don't need to rely on the E, so it's better for me to have Q to poke him down as the cooldown is a lot shorter. But we can see, even though I am hitting him with grasp whenever I can, my main goal is the farm. So I'm going to be getting about 6 in a row, I'm pretty sure, 6 out of 6 on wave 1. So my main goal is good farm so that I don't slow down my tier 2 boots. You want to be getting your tier 2s as fast as you can so that when you base in TP, they can't get an even bigger buy. So we can see mainly playing for CS, but I'm going to be looking to poke him. I did miss one there, going for the harass, but you can see my intention is very clear. So here I'm going to be popping Mega, and as we talked about in the laning section as well, you want to be abusing Mega every single time you can and force a big trade. The reason I'm not jumping right now is because I'm 1 million off level 3. So you can see level 3, instantly jump onto him. I W straight away. I don't want to be autoing there just in case he manages to dodge my W. So EW is just going to guarantee that's done, as you can abuse the small slow that you get from the E. So EW auto Q auto, so force a big trade. Try to dodge his Q there, but I was unable to do it. But it's still perfectly fine. You can see every time we have Mega, we're forcing a big trade. We got 18 out of 19 CS. So a lot of champions would recall here, but nah, we know we want to be getting tier 2s, so I'm just using that timer to ward instead. So back into lane now, trying to auto him down as much as I can. I'll actually put it on a little bit of a speed up, as Nav is Cho'Gath, not the most exciting matchup of all time. Well, we can see, main goal, good CS, proc my grasp whenever I can, and stay high HP. Especially this game, I know Lee Sin's most likely going to be starting red, and Kha'Zix is pathing down, so I do need to be very wary of that. But it looks like he started blue. I was actually wrong, but I was playing in the early game as if he started red, because we had no idea. So we can see proccing grasp, chasing him down here, big mega trade. So I'll go back a little bit. We can see auto, get the third auto, jump onto his head here. And then I'm going to be looking to get the next hyper proc there. I got the W stacked. And here I had the W early as my mega was going to pop anyway. But I'm able to get a really big trade onto him. So we can see nice freeze here, 3-wave crash, let the wave come back in, trim the wave as it's coming back, abuse your mega timings to trade. And now our lane is in a really good position. So I'll speed up a little bit, even though we'll try to ignore what's happening mid. Team is exploding. Gnar is pretty bad at moving to early skirmishes unless you've just crashed a wave or your mega is good. So typically if you're fresh mini, you don't want to be involved at all. So we can see, just playing for the farm. I've got enough gold for Swifties here, so I'm going to be looking to crash a wave and base. That's exactly what I'll do. You'll see I'll speed up a little bit. I'm mainly playing to get this wave in as fast as I can and base and TP back with my Swifties. So now that we're back with the Swifties, sorry I had the backspace a little bit there. Now that I'm back with Swifties, we're going to be looking to hard punish. So I went Dagger Pod here. Normally you can go refill as well in a volatile matchup, but versus Cho'Gath, not very volatile, so I'm feeling really confident in this matchup. So I'm going to be looking to freeze here and grow an advantage. I don't feel too confident to hit the tower in front of him yet, especially because they have Lee Sin jungle, really strong early threat, and Void Grubs are spawning soon, so I'm mainly going to be playing to grow an individual CS advantage. That's exactly what we do here. You can see nice freeze against him. Not much you can do about it, as my Mega Bar is really good. If he walks up like this, I can just chase him down. So I didn't have Q there, or I would have gone for a bigger trade, but now our Q is back, so we're going to be doing just that. You can see how threatening Mini Gnar can be when you have enough Mega to actually stick onto him. And there I didn't choose to ulti, I didn't really want to give up any CS, I want to hold it in case he walks back up, but I probably could have used it for a trade there. But you can see my top priority in this moment was the wave control. So keeping my freeze here, growing that CS lead, and luckily Kha'Zix was able to get grubs as well, as Lee Sin just farms my bottom lane. And look at the score right now, 7-1. Team is getting exploded at the moment, which is why I thought it would be a good example. It's not a game where we stomp really hard or anything. My team is struggling a lot, but I've got a 15 CS lead already in this game, and now I'm going to be trying to use that to blow up the enemy Cho'Gath's tower. So he's respecting a lot because my jungler was top, he didn't have good vision I'm guessing, and their jungler's bottom, but now we're going to be looking to build big waves and proc demolish on his tower, and start to grow a big advantage in the form of plate. So jump past his Q, hit him with the fossil there, and I was looking to ulti them into the wall there, and force a big trade, ulti into W into Q, but he had a really good silence onto me, and I tanked the tower on accident, so good disengage by him. But you can see I'm still trying to force here, really big mistake there, taking a bunch of tower shots, but it's fine. We'll just recall. Actually, we won't. So the reason I actually stay here instead of basing. I would have based if it was like a Wukong or a Jax or a scary champion, but because it's Cho, I feel very confident that I can stay and be a bit more greedy. So if you're wondering about the runes why I have cookies, I did think it was Gangplank top, as Cho'Gath mid is more common in Korea, but it was GP mid in this game. So approach velocity cookies feels really good in the GP matchup, as that extra movement speed can be the difference between chasing him down or dodging a barrel, things of that nature, and it's going to be hard to get a lot of value from Alacrity against him, as he's basically a ranged champion. So we can see building a big wave. I don't want to be crashing one wave at a time. You always want to be stacking 2 waves at a time so that you can proc demolish and trying to hold your mega for as long as you can, so that while you're on 80, 90 mega and staring at them like this, they have to respect the whole time. So now that the wave is here, I'm going to be trying to one-shot it with the Mega Boulder, starts to one-shot the casters really early on to the game, and now I can go for a Demolish proc. So proc Q first, run past him, you can see trying to avoid him, mainly just going for the tower plate, and then I know the plate's going to die to the minions, so I can just disengage here. I was a bit scared of Lee Sin coming, so I was kiting all the way out here, but I wanted to get the cheeky Q on the way out, and then straight back to lane. So you can see the formula when you verse these tanky or these neutralizer champs that can be quite hard to kill. You just want to be trying to get tier 2 boots early, and then stacking big waves together and trying to blow up their tower. But now, because he's Cho'Gath, he's getting low and he's low on mana. He's not a really hard to kill champ like a Cassante, so I'm going to be playing for the kill. So I ping for an all-in. I want Kha'Zix to get involved. I'm going to be trying to stop this guy's base. You can see I really want to punish this, but their jungler was quite good if I remember correctly. You can also ulti to get the wave in, is a thing you can do. So here I don't have my Q to one-shot the wave, as I'd use it to stop his base. So you can use your ulti as a tool to one-shot waves, especially if you want to recall really quickly. That could be a good tool as well. But now we can see Kha'Zix approaching, gets hit by the Q. He can't dodge Cho'Gath Q like we can, and Lee Sin makes it in time. So jump away. I don't want to risk my life for a kill on Cho, and I'm just waiting here. I was initially going to base, but I saw when Lee Sin hit the Q, he's going to fly in. Every Lee Sin has a Lee Syndrome. He's going to be flying into that Q, so I stopped my recall and ready to turn this fight. So I didn't realize I had a ward here. That was a big mistake on my part, but I was able to flash the Lee Sin's E and pick up that nice kill. So we'll base here straight away, pick up Phage and Half-Bound Axe. You can see I actually tried Sheen in this one. The item section guide I made way after I played this game, of course. So this is when I made the conclusion, probably, that I don't like Half-Bound Axe. Actually, I don't like Sheen, sorry. Actually, the reason I went Sheen here, now that I think more about it, is you can see if I bought Half-Bound Axe, I'd have to buy Axe and the glowing moat, the purple ball sack thing. So we don't want to be doing that. It's such a small buy. You want to buy Sheen and Longsword is going to outperform just Half-Bound X by itself. But if you have to pick between Sheen or X, you should prioritize X on Gnar. So come back to lane, get the vision down, and we can see here, it's going to be playing for that grub fight. So 48 mega, I know I can pop it during the fight if I need to, and looking to get a good flank amongst it. So we can see deep flank here, but the fight looks really bad. Our Kha'Zix played the skirmish poorly yet again, so just straight back to top. You want to be playing quite greedy on Gnar, as you don't want to get behind before you get to your spike. And here I'm trying to get the fight started because Poppy's in the area. I feel like maybe with my Mega and I'm so strong, level 7 Lee Sin, we can do something. But Rel is just so scary here that we were not able to get anything done. And it was a 4v2 anyway, pretty tricky. Jhin was on the way, but that champ doesn't do much. So we can see I'm mainly playing to just disengage. My top priority is a stable early game. If you get tier 2 boots and Triforce on Gnar, and you're even or ahead, you're going to beat any champ in the game most likely. So come back to lane here, and again, time to break his tower. Top priority, but we don't have a cannon wave there, so he can one-shot it, but push in the wave, chase him down, go for the demolish proc here. You can see the formula. So I'll chuck my boomerang, switch to mega form here. I actually should have. Why did I not swap to mega form there? Must just be a mistake. After I chuck out that boomerang, it'd be really good for me to E away, because then I can disengage from the tower and get the mega demolish proc. But just a mistake, it happens to the best of us, and I'm still going to be looking to do the same thing. So don't want to lose this cannon. Unfortunately, he stops me, and I'm going to be basing and TPing back. So now with Triforce, this is when I want to be punishing really hard. So when you get Triforce on Gnar, if you're having a good game, you can see we've got the killing good farm. You will have a small timer where the tower plates are still up. So I want to be going for that if I can. I don't think I will be able to in this game. I was looking bottom initially for a TP, but instead there's not going to be a good angle. I don't really want to get involved bottom too much. They are getting rolled. So I mainly want to be trying to blow up this Cho'Gath tower if I can. So now that I know I'm planning to blow up the tower, we get a deep ward, because when they see me doing that, the 6-1 Lee Sin might run top and try to kick my head in. So I want to be safe for that. It also shows the Herald as well, more or less. So it's going to be a 2-for-1 ward there. But my game plan here, stack waves together, try to blow up the tower. But it is a mid game now. Supports can run around very freely. So it's really important for me to prioritize staying alive over greeting for that tower. But I will go for it if I can. So we're pinging for this Herald fight here, but my Mega Gnar is not the best. I'm trying to stack it as much as I can. But 40, I feel confident if I play the fight slow that I can pop Mega during the fight. So walking down here and looking to start out the fight as a mini Gnar and swap into range into Mega Gnar halfway through the fight. So just stacking on Cho'Gath, thank you for the stacks, and then switching to a real target, going onto the Ashe, knocking them back towards my team. I could have knocked them into the wall here. I just wanted to knock them further away from their tower. So now we're able to pick up the kill. Went for the RW combo. We're able to get both of the kills here. So you can see really good rotation down there. If the fight looked bad, I would have just gone back to top. But I saw I'm a Triforce Gnar. I'm really strong here. And I can just stack Mega off this meatball. Another great reason why you love to play Gnar into melees or tanky melees. You can stack Mega off them for free and just run them down with Hyper. And we're able to get that really good team fight. So moving on, after that team fight, I went straight back to top with the intention to blow up the tower. However, in this game, they did something quite smart. They sent the Gangplank to answer me instead of the Cho'Gath. Really hard for me to hit the tower in front of him, as he just blows up the wave in one barrel. So I'm going to be looking to follow our golden rule. Remember, if we cannot make progress 1v1, we look for a proactive play around the map. So here, I cannot hit tower in front of GP, so instead I look for a roam mid. So initially, my team wasn't really in range, so I was planning to back off here, but then Ashe did something. She showed with her body language something that made it very tempting. She started walking up and playing more aggressive, so I went back and I was planning to try to blow her flash or kill her here. So we can see, just jump on, chuck the Q, put a lot of pressure on her, make it really hard for her to walk up without dying. Unfortunately, even though I hit my skill shot, everyone else missed theirs, even though she's slowed. But it does happen. You're not going to have great teammates every single game, and it's perfectly fine. So we go straight back to top. I did miss the cannon, but I got the XP, so didn't really miss anything for putting a lot of pressure on that Ashe. But now, back to lane, gonna proc my Mega, looking to use Demolish on the tower, and finally break down that tier 1. So we'll walk in here. We can see I don't have TP for that bot play. I'm just keeping an eye on it, but we can break the tower. So I queued him here to do a bit of damage, but also to get my Sheen proc from Triforce and then flick him away so that I couldn't get barreled. Here, it was a bit weird why he was running towards me. I don't know why, so I just kited out. But all of his teammates are dead here anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. I was in mini-form, it would have been an awkward fight if he had a flash, so it's better to be safe than sorry in a game like this, where you are quite far ahead. But when my when the tide bar is gone, I'm going to be looking to fight. However, in this case, Dragon is spawning soon, and I don't have time to get the wave all the way to tier 2 and create pressure, so I want to be joining that fight. So I base here, buy as much items as I can, TP in straight away the second I'm in the platform. I want to be here before the fight begins if I can. I'm a little bit late, maybe I could have based 5 seconds earlier or something, but I TP in, get a nice TP flank here. You can see my Mega Bar, 68 for this TP flank, so even if they turned onto me, I would be able to proc Mega during the fight. So we can see a lot of my decisions in this game were very pre-planned in a way, where I was pre-planning the gank mid, the trying to get the tower, the TP in, so that it's very easy for me to play my Mega accordingly, because if you don't pre-plan what you're doing on Gnar, it's going to be really hard for you to play, because you might pop Mega at the wrong time, or you might be exhausted when you want to do a fight, so you need to be pre-planning all of your decisions in the game, and then evaluating them after. So now heading back onto the map for our next sequence, looking to create as much pressure bottom as I can, as it is the opposite side of Baron, which is the next objective. However, if there's a fight around mid, the top lane special, all these fights happening without you, so I hover briefly, but I end up going straight back to bottom and looking to create pressure in the end. So pushing the wave, looking to get down this tower. It's really important if you can break the tier 1 side towers so that you can keep your opponent stuck under tier 2 and create a much bigger move timer for yourself. So just flick them away so I can break the tower without getting chunked. And then Poppy was looking for a gank. I don't think it ended up being anything. Perfectly fine. So just pushing this wave. And again, can I hit the tower in front of a gangplank? No way. He's just going to one-shot the wave with 2 barrels. So I'm going to be pushing at bottom. And look, while GP is answering bot, looking for a fight myself. So you can see I'm here first before GP. He's desperately trying to follow. But we don't really have any engaging. Kha'Zix did get caught out. Unlucky game from him. And this fight just looks completely horrible. So I'm not going to be trying to fight this. Just back out, disengage with Qs. And then I'm hovering around Baron here because if I go bottom with no TP and they start Baron, they're going to get it. So I need to be in the area in case they start that. However, they saw me in the area. They were kind of respecting Kha'Zix respawn. So now I've got timer to base and run bottom. Just a side note, I did opt into building Terminus in this game. I would say my conclusion on it is a for fun item, I would say. It is really good when you're ahead, but I would say Wit's End is better every time. Unless you're just having a lot of fun, you can build Terminus, but Wit's End is going to be a lot more consistent. So here, I run straight to Baron. Sylas, is bottom with TP, so I'm fine with him creating pressure there, and he is there before me. So I'm going to be looking to come here. I chuck Q on Baron there, and I ran out of Baron's range just to keep my Mega at around 40. I planned these team fights to be on low Mega as we began, because I wanted to be abusing. We don't really have sustained damage. Our Jhin doesn't do damage. We have a Assassin mid, Assassin jungle, so I want to be more of that sustained damage on our team, and you can see pay off. So I come here and I can do the damage to Cho, just run him down with hyperprocs and one-shot him percentage HP, and same thing to the Rel as well if I was able to get onto him. So starting out the fight around 40 mega is good if you want to be starting out in range form and getting a lot of DPS down. Now here is a big mistake I made in the game. You can learn from my failure. I was trying to perfectly time it so I can E ulti as I switch into mini form, but the timing was off. You can see I get the mega form E. I'm spamming R the whole time, but I was unable to get the R off. Just switched to mini form in time, and they just turned on to me. So question mark ping from my team there. Fair enough, failed my play. If I went 1 second earlier, even a half a second, would have been able to get it off, but it's okay. My Sterix didn't even pop. Base and TP straight back to top. The reason I'm TPing top, yet again, Sylas is creating bottom pressure. He's a pretty strong side laning champion. I'm fine with him being there, and I wouldn't be able to hit the tier 2 anyway at this point versus the GP. So now looking to play around Baron. Unless we play for Dragon, that's perfectly fine too. We can't really do Baron in this game because our DPS is so low in the early game. So if we switch sides to Dragon, that's perfectly fine. But you can see it. I'm just looking to play for the fight now, sitting at around between 20 and 40 mega. I'd like to have a bit more. I'm probably going to hit this ward here, top up my mega, and now it's time for Baron. So now you can do pretty good DPS to Baron if you want, because you have good W procs, but you do want to be prioritizing the fight. So here I pull off Baron at 60 mega so that I can abuse mini form and just start to one-shot this Cho'Gath here. And a little bit unlucky, it got silenced, so I couldn't get a really big ulti off. Spamming ulti the whole time, CC'd forever. Ulti W, E away Q. So I still got a lot of value in that team fight. So even though I was DPSing Baron, you can see I turned off at the second they arrived because my top priority is the fight. Way more so than the Baron itself. So able to kill the Cho'Gath there, playing it nice and slow. In a game where you're 5-0, 4-0 playing really well, you don't want to be risking your life in these fights. I'm trying to do as much as I can in the fight without dying to provide as much damage and CC as I can. So we come down here, I'm kind of guarding the dragon. This was my biggest mistake of the game here. This Poppy, who's been making some questionable plays all game, is spam pinging, and it looked pretty good initially, how he just full comboed this GP, so I went in, but I completely regret it. I should just jump over the dragon wall, play for dragon, don't get sucked into his weird plays. I think after this I muted him. You can see I muted his pings, because even though it's my fault for following him up, I did get mind controlled a little bit by his pings, so I opted to mute as well. So now, straight back onto the map, we're looking to create pressure opposite side of the next objective, which is Dragon Soul. So I go top here, they try to cheese me. I was a little bit hesitant to face check here, but because I had Styrax, I felt a little bit confident. I still shouldn't have done it, it was pretty close, but I'm able to outplay the Lee Sin, and now we're in a good position to play for Baron. So I go top, I chase down this Rel as well. You can see, this is kind of the difference between Mega Gnar and Mini Gnar when you're trying to kill a tank or a tanky champion. I just don't do damage to this guy. But look, as soon as we swap forms, we're going to start to really chew through him with these hyper procs. They just start to one-shot. So nice kill onto the Rel there, pull off to Baron, one-shot it, and now we're going to be looking to use our Baron to close out this game. So now, heading back onto the map with Baron, my goal here is to create a 2-lane push. So one person mid, one person bottom, and a kill squad of 3 controlling bot jungle is how we're going to get the most amount of value with our Baron buff. So I go bottom here after hovering mid to keep them safe, and I'm going to be looking to join this fight. However, they didn't need me now. From this point, after all these fights we've been carrying and the Baron we got, we are strong enough to win fights without me, luckily. It was a 4v4, actually Cho wasn't there too, so I just pull off and play for the bot tower. So looking to get down the tower, here I actually tried to test out my Terminus a little bit, and my conclusion, very similar DPS to Wit's End, so only build it if you don't need MR or Tenacity, which is going to be almost never. Most of the time you will just be going Wit's End, so just really abusing the hyper procs here on Cho'Gath, able to kill him, and play for these tier 2s. So here, my second biggest mistake of the game, where I didn't really think about if Ashe had flash or not, so I prioritized the kill too highly. So hit her with the Q, jump onto her while she's slowed, went for the EW insta combo, but she flashed it. I should have E-ulted, she would have flashed it anyway most likely, but it's not worth going for that low value kill when I'm an 8-1 now with a shutdown. Better for me just to break the inhib, let the Kazakhs die for the 20th time of the game, and then disengage and play for top inhib instead. However, at this point in the game, actually, Dragon Soul is way more important than the top inhib, so we'll be going through the final sequence. So I run straight back onto the map. My goal is Dragon Soul, so I'm stacking Mega now on the wolves. You can see I'm going to be trying to end at around 60 Mega. This is going to be the sweet spot for this fight, so I get a little bit of time to abuse my range form, but I still want to be popping Mega pretty early on in the fight. As it is later on in the game, there's a lot of damage at this point. So we can see, great start to the fight, and this is the dream location for Gnar, so many walls to use, and I just double jump in early even before ulti, so that I can chase down everyone and be in the middle of their team as I proc my ulti. So great ulti there, 2-man stun. You can see my Q as well. I didn't tunnel too hard on the Cho'Gath. I aimed my Q at the gangplank here to slow him so we could chase him down and finish him off as well. So you can see here the main reason I was able to win this game, even though we started out 1-8, 1-9, something like that, is I kept my gameplay very consistent. There were a couple mistakes there, where I followed up the Poppy, where I tried to kill the Ashe, but that was at the point where the game was already in a good position. My overarching game plan, I got tier 2 boots, I got Triforce really stable, good CS, and then I was able to create pressure, rotate to a team fight consistently, and I was able to be the difference maker in this game. Next up, we're going to be covering the drafting, and even though I'd say out of the majority of champions I've made guides on, or just champions in top lane in general, Gnar cares the least about how the draft is going. He's so flexible, it's why he's so good in pro play. It doesn't really matter what you pick with him or against. I'd say the most important part of this section is actually play against what you don't want to be versing, but other than that, he's going to be very consistently good in a lot of games, but that doesn't mean we can't figure out the best timers to play him, and that's going to be the point of this section. So we'll start with what you want to be banning. Now, I'll say the 3 bans that come to mind would be Irelia Jax Riven. However, Gnar doesn't really need a specific ban for him. You can ban whatever you hate playing against. Maybe you hate Alawi for some reason. Maybe you hate versing like a certain jungler, like a Kane or an Evelynn. You can ban whatever you don't like to play against. However, for top lane, Irelia, Jax, or Riven will be the big 3. So they're very popular champs. I'd say Irelia not so much, but she's one of his hardest matchups. Jax is very popular and pretty good into Gnar, so you can ban Jax for that. So pretty much out of these 3, whatever champion you don't like versing the most can be a good ban if you don't know what else to ban. Now, in terms of the team comp, so what do you want to be playing Gnar with? I'll say this section matters at least what you have on your comp. You can play Gnar with any type of champions on your team, more or less, and you're going to be fine. But the best pairings with him is going to be hard engage coming from other roles. So from jungle, you actually want to have champions like Skarner, champs like Zac, champs like Nunu, who can get fights started and can be provide some CC. Because Gnar, even though you can engage, he's not really good at primary engaging, as it does rely on perfect mega management. The range isn't that long if you don't have flash. So having a Skarner or a Zac, a go button from jungle, can feel really good. And when you play with junglers that want to be invading and getting stuck in early like a Nidalee, doesn't feel too good because Gnar is very weak in the early game. So having a champion that's happy to farm and be good in teamfights like a Skarner or a Zac is going to feel really good. And as for mid, I'll say you can have 2 options. You can either have dive buddies, so champs that go in with you, like a Silas or an Akali, or you can play with mages, Hui or Azir, whatever you got on your team, doesn't really matter from mid, I'd say. But as for bot lane, diving AD carries are going to feel the best. So if you can get a good ulti and you've got your Kai'Sa, your Corki to follow you up, that's going to feel amazing. Or from support, Rel, Alistair, Leona, champs that can get the fight started. If your Rel or Alistair hits a great engage and you're there with Mega, nothing's going to feel better in the game, so really good to have those champions on your team. Now, as for what you're bad with, I'd say from jungle, it's going to be champions with very little CC. Champs that sit back and wait for the fight to happen doesn't really feel that good to play with. So champs like Graves, champs like Kane can feel a bit annoying, especially because they're AD as well. So if your opponent builds tabbies, it's very efficient for them. Where Nidalee, even though Nara Nidalee doesn't really feel that good either, at least she's AP. At least, the damage mix is pretty good there. But if you have a Graves or a Kane, doesn't really feel that good. And as for mid, similar reasoning, but I like having either a dive threat or a consistent damage source from AP damage from mid. So if you have an Akshan or a Zed, something like that, it's probably not going to be the most optimal. And for bot lane, nah, you can peel on nah, but your peel's not reliable, as again, mega management can be quite tricky, so having an Ashe or an Aphelios that kind of relies on peel in a way doesn't feel that good. You want to be doing your own thing on nah, either you can front to back or you can jump in, get a big ulti. You don't really want to be trying to keep your AD alive, so nah is going to be a champion, where if you have champs like Kai'Sa, Corki that are self-sufficient, that can go in, even Azaya, they can keep themselves alive, that's going to feel the best for you. And as for support, again, you really want to have hard engage. Anything that's not a hard engage champion doesn't feel great to play with. I'd still rather an enchanter than a champion like Thresh or a Pike, where they can't really start the fight, but they're not going to buff you up and shield you and keep you alive either. So champs like that don't feel too good. So I'd say you really want to be having hard engage from somewhere in your comp. So if you're playing Clash with the boys, try to get either an engage jungle, engage support, and as much follow up as you can get, and that's going to be the best condition for Gnar. And as for what Nara's good against, you can probably check out the matchup section for the matchups, but normally champions that are very easy to kite or hit tower against. So a champion like Garen, quite easy to kite him down, run him down in early game and inside, or a champion like Tom, where you can do the same thing but also blow up the tower in front of him. That's going to feel the best. From jungle, it's going to be champs that can't really punish your weak early game. So a champ like Hecarim, a champ like Graves, very little gank threat on you if you basically get Tabby's first recall, versus a Jax Graves, something like that. You're pretty much going to be unkillable, so that's going to feel the best for you. For mid, it's going to be champions like Aurora, champions like Echo, where they have very short range, and Nara is also one of the best champs in the game at marking flankers. So if Echo or Aurora is trying to get creative, get behind you, you can just jump towards them, start gunning them down with boomerangs. Feels really, really good to play up against them, where some long range champions can be a bit tricky. And for AD carry and support, I'll say for AD carry, low mobility is great. So champs like Jhin, champs like Caitlyn, that's very easy for you to punish. And they don't really have high burst either, so you can stay alive for a long time. And for support, low threat. So champs like Tahm Kench, champs like Braum from support, they can't really threaten you at all. And even though they have good disengage, it can be annoying if you go on with Mega. If you have 3-item now with Wits End and Triforce just shooting them down, you're going to do really good into that type of comp, as they're not really going to have any way to stop you. Now, as for the most important part of my opinion, what is Gnar bad against? So for top, it's going to be champions that can easily force onto you, especially early game. So champs like Ringguard, champs like Riven, champs like Irelia, it's really hard for you to respect that timing when you're in mini form. They can really hard force onto you. And as for jungle, champs with high early game threat or tower dive. So if you've as Rek'Sai, Elise, Talia, champs like that. So pretty much if you're picking Gnar later on and you see, oh damn, they've got Riven, Irelia, Tom with an Elise or a Talia, really strong top jungle. They can dive you or high kill threat. Probably not going to be the best Gnar game. They can just dive you whenever you want. It's pretty hard to pick any top laner in that type of game. But a lot of tankier champs like a Renekton or maybe just a tank can do a lot better. So Gnar into really high kill threat top jungle. They can easily force advantages onto you, can be really scary. Now, for mid, it's not really about the early game, but stay away from Sylas, I would say. Giving Sylas Gnar ulti, it's just way too impactful. It's not as bad as Sylas into Malphite, of course, but giving a Sylas mid the access to Gnar ulti when his champion is so mobile can be really hard for your team to play against. And other than Sylas, I'd say high burst assassins can be really annoying. So like a Katarina, a Talon that are just dashing around, they can one-shot you because you can't really build a full MR item on Gnar. Your third item, Wits End, it does give MR, but it's not really the same as a Maw or a full MR item. So you're not really going to be that tanky up against AP assassins, and AD assassins are the same. You don't really want to build a Randuin just because they have a Talon. He doesn't really crit. So Tabby's might not be enough in that type against that type of champion, especially before you have your Sterax. Now, other than that, I'd say from mid, long range bursty champs like Syndra can also be a bit annoying, but in my experience, mainly assassins are quite annoying for not to deal with. Now for AD carry, high mobility is the most annoying. Champs like Kai'Sa, champs like Tristana, that are really hard for you to get onto. If you try to trade orders with them, you're going to lose. And especially Tristana can actually ulti you out of the fight when you're mega. That can be quite tricky. Kai'Sa going invisible and dashing around. Really, really annoying to play up against those champions. And as for support, it's pretty much going to be the same as what you want to play with hard engage. Hard engage feels good, I guess, in every champion you play in the game. You always want to have hard engage support. So playing up against is no exception, where champs like Rel, champs like Rakan, they can force onto you and make you use Mega at a bad time, or maybe even kill you before you get Mega, can make your job a lot harder. Now, we're going to be wrapping up this guide with the main takeaway, so the key points I want you to keep in your mind before you queue up for that Gnar game. And the first two are going to be mainly tied around laning, and you've probably heard me say it a million times in this guide, but make sure you get to tier 2 boots unscathed is your default. Now, once you can do that, you can try to do a bit more. Maybe you can bully your opponent down, get a big CS gap, but your default has to be I get tier 2 boots on my first recall, and I'm relatively even with my opponent. Now, as for the trades, how you want them to go, normally just take short trades, but don't be afraid to commit a big trade every single time you have ulti. Use your ulti in every mega form where you can trade onto your opponent, because the cooldown is so short, you shouldn't be afraid to use it, and you can't use it in mini form anyway, so most of that time the cooldown's been ticking, you're in mini form, so it's not really a waste as long as you get a good trade for it. Now, if you're versus a champion that's great in a long trade, you don't want to be fighting them to the death, but let's say you're versus Darius, don't be afraid to jump onto them, Alt WQ and just run away and just force that big trade and accept a nice chunk. Now for the mid game, making sure we're being very decisive. You either fully commit, Dragon's up in a minute, I don't care, I want to be in the side lane, I want to try to get this tier 2 down, or Dragon's up in the minute, the complete opposite, I want to be playing for this fight and making sure you manage your mega accordingly and being at that fight on time, not relying on trying to do both, split pushing and TPing in, really hard to do on Gnar. Now in terms of the mega management, making sure we follow our number one rule, if you're planning to play for that fight, making sure you stay between 40 and 99 mega, depending on how you want to play it, before the fight begins. Don't greed for that extra wave or that camp, don't try to help your jungler do the dragon. Your mega management and the way you should be playing out that fight has to be your top priority over anything else in the game if you do want to be fighting that objective. Alright everyone, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the video and hopefully learned something. I put a ton of time and effort into making this guide as good as possible, so I really hope you learned a lot and I appreciate any support that you can give. And if there's any champion at all that you'd love to see me cover next, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. I'll see what I can do, and I'll see you all next time.